Assalamu alaikum. Hi students, this is the first chapter of business studies and the name of the chapter is business, trade and commerce. This chapter is divided into two sections, that is first section deals with history of trade and commerce in ancient India and section 2 deals with nature and purpose of business. Today in this class we shall discuss about the section 1, that is history of trade and commerce. In this part we will discuss detailedly the economic and commercial development of any land or the country depend upon its physical environment. Okay, this stands true for Indian subcontinent also, because Indian subcontinent has Himalayas in the north and border of water in the south. See, our Himalayas lies in the northern part, that is upper part of the India, and border of water lies in the lower part, that is the south part. Next is networks of roads were created. For conducting any trade, the roads are most important. The important roads of ancient India is Silk Route and Spice Route. Silk Route and Spice Route. First is Silk Route. With the help of this route, it helped the Indian to connect with the foreign countries. Okay, with the help of this route, Indians were doing trade with the foreign countries. Second is Spice Route. It is called spice route because this route was being used for the trading spices. So it has been given the name spice route. Next is commercial cities like Harappa and Mohenjo-daro were some examples of business development of ancient India. This Harappa and Mohenjo-daro were some cities which were being well developed at the time of ancient period. This civilization had established a commercial connection with Mesopotamia, and even this Harappa and Mohenjo-daro were having trade with Mesopotamia also. And these cities were doing trade with gold, silver, copper, gemstone, etc. They were not using money. See, in ancient period, barter system were being used. Means people were exchanging goods for goods. After barter system, they started using coins, that is gold coins, silver coins, etc. Okay. Next point is indigenous banking system. See, nowadays for trading, we take the loans from banks, but at the time of ancient period, there was no banks. So this indigenous banking came into effect. Okay. Indigenous banking is a system of banking that involves private firms. It was a private firms, or we can say it was an individual who act as a banks. Means it was private firms and the individuals who were acting like a banks by providing financial services. They were providing financial services for the trading, such as loans they were giving, and they were accepting the deposits from the public. The main features of this indigenous banking is, first one is accepting deposits from the public. These indigenous bankers were accepting deposits from the public even for the fixed period and also for the current period. Fixed period and also for the current period. Next is providing loans against security. These indigenous bankers were giving loans to the traders against the securities. Securities such as lands, vehicles, gold, etc. Next point is discounting in undis. The most important function of the indigenous bankers were discounting the undis. From this discounting undis, they were getting the profit. Undis were important instrument of money exchange. This undis were being used for exchanging the money. In terms of money, they were using this undis. For what they are using? They were using for the business. Okay. I will explain this undis with an example. For example, A purchased goods from B worth 50,000. Here, A will not make an immediate payment to B. He will purchase the goods on credit basis. But for the guarantee, he will issue an undi. This undi will be like a letter. Okay. In this undi, he will mention that I will make a payment to B after some period, that may be even 30 days. Okay, take 30 days. I will make a payment to B after 30 days. Here B will accept the undi. Okay, that is called an undi. Now what is this discounting undi? For example, now here A issued the undi. Now B is in urgent need of money. Now what B will do? He sold his good but he don't have money. But B needs the money urgently. Okay, he will issue the undi. And he will send that undi for the A. Here A will accept the undi and he will send it to B. Now what B will do? He will go to the bank. B will represent that undi to the bank. Bank will make an immediate payment to the B, but payment will not be 50,000. It might be 45,000. Example, 45,000. Bank will not make an full payment because bank is discounting the undi. But after the specified period, A will make a full payment to bank, that is 50,000. Understood? Your indigenous bankers were earning profit from this discounting undis. Next is rise of intermediaries. Intermediaries are nothing but middlemen, agents, etc. After this indigenous bankers, this intermediaries came into an existence. During the Mughal period and the day of East India Company, at the time of Mughals and the period of East India Company, the institution of Jagat Seths also developed and exercised a great influence. It was an institution. It was like this institution was acting like an middleman to finance the trade. Later on, commercial and industrial banks evolved to finance trade and commerce. Later on, this commercial and industrial banks came into existence to finance the commerce and trade, and agricultural banks to provide both short and long term loans to finance agriculture. Even agricultural banks also came into existence to finance the agriculture for the long term and also for the short term. Understood? Next point is transport. Let's see how was our transport at the time of ancient period. Transport by land and water was popular in the ancient time that helped in maintaining trade. They were carrying the trade in both land and also in the water. Trade routes were structurally wide and was suitable for speed and safety. The routes they were using for trade was very wide and was suitable for speed and safety. They were conducting trade safely. Maritime trade was another important branch of global trade network. This maritime trade helped the ancient people to conduct the trade with foreigners. That is, with the help of this route, they were conducting trade globally. Next is trading communities strengthened. In different parts of the country, different communities dominated trade. Means in different states, different communities started dominating the trade. For example, Punjabi and Multani merchants handled business in North region. In the North region, here in the northern region, Punjabis and Multanis handled business. Butts were managing trade in Gujarat and Rajasthan. Other urban groups includes professionals such as lawyers, teachers, physicians, painters, etc. They were also been involved in trading. Next is the major leading trade centers. The important leading trade centers of ancient periods were Peshawar, Takshila, Mathura, Surat, Ujjain, etc. These places were most famous at the time of ancient period for trading. Next is they were exporting spices, wheat, sugar, indigo, sesame oil, animal products like skin, furs, etc., shells, coppers, granites, etc. These things they were exporting to foreign countries. Horses, animal products, Chinese silk, flask, wine, gold, silver, tin, copper, lead, rubies, etc. These were the things ancient people imported from foreign countries. Next is position of India's subcontinent in world economy, that is from 1 AD to 1991. First point is between 1st and 7th century, India is estimated to have the largest economy of the ancient and medieval world. Between this 1st and 7th century, India is estimated to have the largest economy of the ancient and the medieval world. Before foreigners came to India, India was the richest country. Okay. Because of this, the name given to the country was Swarna Bhumi and Swarna Deep. But in 18th century, India was far behind Western Europe in technology, innovation and ideas. But when compared to Western countries, India was lacking in technology, innovations and idea because lack of freedom, limited education and country was giving much importance to the manpower when compared to the machineries. This was a major cause for India to fall behind. Next point is the inflow of bullion that used to come on account of foreign trade stopped. See, before foreigners came to India, India was earning the fine profit from its export and it was exporting the processed goods to the other countries. But after Britishers came to India, they changed the condition of economy by making India the exporter of raw material and importer of finished goods. Next is India began to re-industrialize. After independence, India went for centralized planning. Centralized planning. It means after independence, India started to give preference to the planned economy than the unplanned economy. Okay, India implemented its first 5-year plan in the year 1952. In the year 1952, India implemented its first 5-year plan and importance was given for the development of modern industries, modern technology, scientific institute, space and nuclear programs. These things were given most important. But this was not successful. So, India agreed to economic liberalization in the year 1991. Firstly, India gave importance to the 5 years plan, but this plan did not help the Indian economy to grow at rapid pace due to lag in capital formation, rise in population, huge expenditure on defense and inadequate infrastructure. Thus, India agreed to economic liberalization in the year 1991. And section 2 we shall discuss in our next class. Thank you, students.